6mm grey Depron. What I have used previously is original Depron, which is now gone as far as I can tell. If you did have a big stack of it left, I wouldn't bother with it for a hovercraft. It's good for, wing fuselage on a plane. But for the base plate of a hovercraft, it's actually, certainly the skirtless ones that I'm building, it's actually a little bit too rigid and heavy, I'd say. There's nothing wrong with it. I just think there's better options, so that's gone. Depron Aero is the better option. I absolutely love this stuff compared to the original Depron. It's a bit lighter, a bit softer, a bit more flexible. That's perfect for the hovercraft, absolutely perfect. In fact, I started using it a lot on planes as well. I just found I could work with it a little bit better. The original Depron, it'll get a little bit of flex and it just snaps. This bends much more, and the fact that it's softer just, it tends to take impacts a little bit better. I absolutely loved this. And it's a shame that I absolutely loved it, because this is effectively gone now as well. Exhausted my last sheets of it quite some time ago, so I had to look for alternatives. It's called grey Depron sometimes. I'll put it up on screen. I usually grab it from Kudos Trading. I'm not shilling, it's just who I use. The other stuff is, let me just have a look, ProWarm Pro Board or something like that. Again, I'll put it up on the screen, I can never remember. This used to come in 1.25 by 0.8 metre sheets. This is now coming, they're now cutting it in half, you don't get as big a slab, same area but not as big any individual sheet. This comes in 1 metre by 0.6. So the crux of it, these are practically the same material. Outside of the colour, the differences are really small. I felt like the grey Depron is a little bit more rigid than the Aero, and the orange is maybe a little bit kind of in between the two, but we're talking extremely minor differences here. So all my builds that I used on Aero, I just transitioned to grey or orange, and there's no changes other than this doesn't always have enough area. So I've got to get used to gluing sheets together, which isn't great, but have to do it. So looking at 10mm foams, which I very rarely use now, it's not an efficient use of material. The bottom plate of the hovercraft, I've built them with 10mm foam all the way across, but it's actually a pretty inefficient use of material. You're much better off having the ramp at each side. You get the thicker section at the side for the jet, and then the base plate can be thinner. It's a much more efficient use of material, so I don't particularly use this anymore. Especially because the foam board that I get here, the first batch of this I bought, one side of the paper, it comes with paper, so it's already been removed. One side of the paper peeled off very easy, the other side was a nightmare, and the only thing I found worked was soaking in isopropyl alcohol. I don't mean spraying it and it comes off. I had to spray it every couple of minutes for nearly an hour to get the paper to let go. When it did, it left a very, very clean finish. And the second batch of the stuff I bought from the same supplier, both sides of it had to do that. I couldn't even get one side of it with the easy peel, so just way too much buying foam, isopropyl alcohol all the time, so I just don't really recommend it. I still do use 10mm foam in a few places very sparingly, especially for sidewalls and maybe heavy reinforcement. So this is 10mm, it's just kind of underfloor insulation foam. Again, I'll put it on the screen. This stuff's really good. It's pretty dense compared to the foam board. Even though it's the same thickness, it's definitely denser. It's pretty strong, it's rigid, it'll take a lot of punishment, so it's quite good for, say, a skirted hovercraft that I've built. It has its virtues, but I do use it sparingly because of the weight. This doesn't come with any paper on it, it just comes like this, which is good. There's one pretty serious problem, depending on what you're trying to do, and that's that tape does not want to stick to this. I don't know if it's some sort of surface coating, but every build I've had where I've had a tape hinge on this, it just comes off, it comes loose, and I've tried sanding and I've tried gluing it as well as taping it and putting double-sided tape down. It's too much hassle. So it works in the short term, but just really do not recommend trying to hinge anything with this. It's good for like a sidewall where it's getting glued on, so that's what I use. So I've been trying to get away from using as much tape as I do, which you can kind of reduce depending on how much you glue versus how much you tape, but I still need a lot of it. And it's 50mm fibre reinforced tape. Ordinary packing tape isn't really strong enough. It's good for protection on the bottom, but structural tape, I'd call it engine tape. This is what you want. There's different batches of this stuff, for lack of a better term. I've bought a lot of this stuff. Some of it's been almost too sticky, really good. Other stuff's been borderline useless. It just seems to depend on the batch and maybe how long it's been sitting in the warehouse. Also use 25mm if it's needed. When it comes to cutting this stuff, again, I'm not shilling, but Fiskars, these are the scissors. Ordinary kitchen scissors, domestic scissors, are just an absolute nightmare with trying to cut this tape. It really is bad. And something which I feel like doubled my production, my throughput, was just getting these. They're absolutely brilliant for the tape. Just trust me on it. If you're struggling cutting the tape, just this is what you want. Again, not shilling. I'm a hot glue addict. I should probably get off the habit. This is great for rapid prototyping. It's just so quick and easy. But it's not actually a great glue. It's strong enough, but quite brittle connections, heavy, messy. Again, for just rapidly building stuff and quick repairs, it's great. But I'm at the point where I know my builds are going to work now, so I'm probably going to shift away from this, maybe onto foam tack or UHU, just something a little bit lighter and cleaner. But certainly there's nothing wrong with just slapping stuff together with hot glue, there really isn't. I just picked this up like a day ago, or had it delivered I should say, wireless glue gun. This heats up instantly, like I'm not kidding, you're talking maybe 5 seconds. It's great for repairs. Obviously you're not getting as much volume out as the mains powered one, but for instant quick repairs, and maybe if you're doing more delicate glue and you don't want the cable all over the place, this actually definitely recommend it. Even though I've only used it a few times, it seems to be really good. So here's something I wish I figured out about a bit sooner. At some point you're going to have to put the Velcro down onto the foam. This Velcro is very good, but the adhesive on it isn't. It will not stick very well with the foam. Hot glue doesn't work, super glue doesn't work. UHU pour is brilliant. Typically what I'll do is, take the adhesive off and I'll put in a kind of grid pattern. Leave it to dry for a few minutes. It goes kind of rubbery and then just literally push down. Usually put some weight on it, leave it overnight, and that's it. It's actually almost impossible to get off, so that's really good for the Velcro. I find any lesser adhesive, it's just going to come off and cause you all sorts of frustrations. So that's your reward if you've listened this far, is to not have to mess about with Velcro coming off all over the place, like I did before I started using this. So in terms of wood, balsa is balsa. I'm sure you're all probably quite familiar with it, but sometimes you need something stronger. So this is Geluton, which I've seen advertised as a balsa alternative. I'm not sure the people saying that know what the word alternative actually means. It's not exactly interchangeable. Compared to the equivalent balsa, this is heavier, much stronger, which actually puts it in a good place. If you want something stronger than balsa but not quite as heavy and overkill as, hardwood or whatever, this is actually really good. It's a very happy medium between stronger than balsa and maybe too heavy and strong. So I use this on the 6mm stuff. Is good for kind of little spars, reinforcement. Obviously it sits very well on the 6mm foam. The 10mm stuff is also quite handy for kind of motor mounts, especially for higher power motors. The 12mm, not that I really do this on Hovercraft much, but if you've got 2 layers of the 6mm foam doubled up, obviously the 12mm will sit flush with that. So you're not going to see it much on my Hovercraft, but it's definitely a material that's worth looking into. Again, it's not an alternative to balsa, but broadly the same applications. Something else I get a lot of use out of is a StarTech ST106 handheld hot wire cutter. Isn't that a mouthful? It's a very handy little thing. Had it for many years. I notice it's picked up a little modification. There's originally a switch there. It's broke, and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to put an external one on. That's just like a little cheap switch, so that takes care of it. Runs off 4 AAs. I recommend any loops because I recommend any loops for everything. The replacement wires, it has official replacement wires, and in case anybody's got one of these, instead of using that, just grab a length of nichrome wire and just, you know, wrap it around the ends. I can't remember the exact gauge. I'll put it on the screen, but that's the easier thing to do rather than just endlessly buying the official one with the fancy ends. Just keep reeling on the nichrome wire.